Well, this is my second try. Try to comment on Nicole's vision shared with me this morning. She had it, I think, from last night. It's published on YouTube and SoundCloud under the title Vision for Immanuel. Nicole, like I said, Vision for Immanuel, floods coming to different cities. Anyway, you can listen to that as a context for this, if you will, a commentary to her vision. So I do want to reframe my thoughts in this new try. First is how the vision came about. She handed it yesterday morning. I'm not sure yesterday was the time. I need to affirm that actually. I don't think. The reason is we had a morning meeting, Tuesday morning meeting. I was suspecting she had a vision. I'm not so sure in the end of the meeting. She didn't share much. And after in the evening and in my prayer time, the Lord strongly impressed on me that she had a vision during the days or through the meeting or after actually. I don't know. So at this point, but around 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, I had a strong impression that she had a vision, and it's an important one. The Lord actually urged me to call her. It's pretty late, so I did not. And so that's a context. In this morning, she sent to me about the 7 something this morning, 7 a.m. or something. Said that she had a vision for me. So that was interesting. A little bit confirmation there. It's always amazing and comforting to know God's Spirit is communicating like that to different people. Now, I know it's an important vision to me personally and beyond me. I just don't know exactly what it is. So anyway, on hearing the vision and then relate to certain contexts, really is amazing to me. Now, anyway, she told me ahead that she had a vision, but she emailed that to me a couple hours later when I arrived at office. And on the way to the office, I had some discussion with Elaine. So in order for that discussion making sense, I want to report here what's recently happened here in the natural. We had almost a week long on and off rainy days, but particularly a couple of days ago, there was a huge windy day, come with a lot of rain. And I think according to some reports, at least in Seattle, that one day basically rained down the whole mountain's precipitation. And so it's a lot of rain. It's called Atmospheric River or something like that, or pineapple, whatever it's called. So I was reading certain news and shared certain news about this flood, especially caught my attention is the flooded over in Highway 5 here in America, north in Canada. Then British Columbia suffered a lot of flooding, which is one of us over centuries a chance for that kind of flood. So, and also this morning reading BBC News said, or some news said Vancouver actually cut off from Canada because the only highway linked to Canada was submerged on the flood. So in understanding this, recently also we have a property where Nicole actually is, Nicole and Justin lives. They had the car literally strangled on the road due to the flood, so that right now still without a chance to get out, still was, the vehicle was pretty much damaged. So in all those things, with talking about things, so driving up here, the river here called the Alva River, where salmon, make their journey to the place where they reproduce, in a sense, we call the salmon run here. They had torn on the dam. So we were talking about the reality that dam bridge was closed. So Yilin was taking a detour in order to reach, to get to, Port Angeles from where we live to the office. So we're commenting on that, the dam teared down to support the salmon's life, environmental benefit for that, and cause other side effects. She actually worked with a lot of film producer, reporting the city basically a plea for support to remedy certain things, like the residue from the river used to, we have a dam, you don't need a filter right now, it's all flooded down, so it required $1 million to filter it out for factory or other purposes. So now it's obviously began to endanger the bridge, so they have to want to replace the bridge in order to remedy the flood. It's the downstream basically. Now all that incurred, I was suddenly called my attention because I did not see how the river was flooded. Yilin was talking about flooded pretty bad, the river. Called in my inner mind a dream very impressed on me when I was quite young. I had strange dreams. In this one dream, of different flooding situations, I would either have to swim through or found a place lost. But in this one of unique flooding dream, never was able to just shake off my mind. In a sense, it was a strange one. For a couple of reasons. Let me first describe the dream. The dream was that there was a huge flood basically happened. Now I was in the aftermath. I had to travel. Everything was submerged in a flood, and therefore I had to travel to the other side. This huge river, massive river. I hope I don't converge different flood dreams I had through the years in one. But this one was, I remember quite well actually. This one I had it, I think in my high school years. So it was quite early in my days, so even I don't remember a lot of dreams, so this is one of those standing out ones. I was trying to get on the side in the aftermath of a huge flood, and there was a dam, so, and there was everything almost was destroyed by the flood. So there was a barely overarching place that you can climb over, make over this, like only structure hung up there. You have to climb, have to just make your way, work carefully in order to get it on the other side. There's no other passage between, across the massive flooded river. And now understand, first thing is, when I was young, I had some trouble with swim or with water actually. So I never learned to swim till now. So I don't know how to swim. So the second is that in my life, by that time, actually this is prior to high school year. I was quite young. I don't quite remember the age I had it. Now, I do know that this dream happened, yes, it was when I was in my small village. So there was no infrastructure like the one that's shown in the dream. There was no dam. In my region, I seldom traveled over 10 miles, less than that, even outside of my village. I was pretty living a reclusive life there. And the dream, however, had those structures there, or garden, and other things. It's just a little bit uncanny. So to have those things show up in my dream, the other dreams, the same nature happened. So that's a part of the strangeness to this dream. That's why it impresses me till today. So I managed to cross over tried a couple times list because was so fearful, so terrifying. You look down, I still remember the feeling I had on that structure. You make simple steps, then retreat because you're almost ready to fall down. You have to climb. You can't really walk. You have to use your foot to climb over almost like a bar, So, and then you look down this massive flood, ready to drop in any time almost. So it's a little bit of adventure for the young boy to cross over. I managed to cross over on the other side eventually. And then I remember I began to follow people. People did the same thing, ascending a mountain. And I followed them, made a lot of climbs. Eventually ended up in half of the mountainous area. And there was a enclosure. It's like somebody built something there. In this standing, somebody built a beautiful garden. It was hidden away, but everybody can go in, take a tour of it. Have different beautiful, construction there. And I toured, eventually ended up either in the center, I think it's in the center of this structure, and there was people gathered again, try to ascend. It was a beautiful view when you look from there into the distance because you can see the valleys, everything. And so people wanted to ascend this pillar-like a structure, like a staircase, So, but it's a pillar of a mountain, It's just shoot up to no end. It's like to heaven, and you can then ascend around. As you ascend, you can look far away and see the beauty of the land. Now, let me continue, just give out the detail of the dream. And that is one way to look at things. The other way is outside this garden, you can continue to climb this massive mountain. Now, I don't know how high that mountain is, but basically you had to walk out this enclosure. It's a Chinese-style garden. We try to build a garden in cities, for tourists or for, just for relaxation or like a park, So, but you had to walk it out in order to ascend this massive mountain. And I remember I was in this dream. I was seeing and the foot, this pillar structure, ready to ascend, and suddenly a urge came to me. I had to retreat from there to walk it out this garden area and go back to ascend the massive mountain, a big mountain, not a pillar structure. And there's few people there. There's a massive people in this garden area, and people line up on to ascend this hill. But I had to retreat. I remember in the gardens also have Chinese kind of structures like temples. There's idol there. I don't know, explain to you, the idol is not necessarily in the Chinese mind. Let's see, in the time where I was and my age was not that bad, to us. It's just familiar things in Chinese tradition. But they were strange, because I never went to a temple, never really worship idols. This is not in my village life, so I never see a garden like that, never went to the area like that. So it was all strange to me. So anyway, I went out, then began to ascend this massive mountain, and there was I don't know, there is no one almost. It's myself, I think. I might be wrong. The stream were certain details were blurred with certain details are standing out to me. For example, was terrified of blood. So and anyway, I was recounting this dream to Elaine, just for fun. Try to fill in the conversation during the drive. Then I reached to the office. Lord urged me to message Nicole to have her share the dream with me, share the vision with me. And while messaging, I found my email. She just sent that to me. So it's interesting to furnish those details. That's one line for detail as a context. The second, I think adding to that, I want to mention something about my personal name, because it's a personal vision. This personal detail might help. My given name, Chinese have different name systems. Okay, so my given name, I better mention it actually. Use this time to do that, because I think this vision is beyond the personal application, rather to do with God's calling and God's timing and God's work in our current generation in the world, as clearly indicated by the vision itself. And so those personal details might help. So I don't think I'm speaking presumptuously or just try to elaborate things beyond, beyond reason, due to a personal vision. So even it is a little bit miraculous given. But let me come back. I was, in Chinese tradition, let me give us our detail on this a little bit. So in Chinese tradition, if you, from one family tradition, you carry on from generation to generation, you have this naming system, okay? Let me give you a little background on my background. So we are in a small village. The dominating that village last name is my family name called Sun, means a prince, okay? So it's a long name, carry on for thousands of years, passed on to us. But the village was refugees or immigrants from other provinces to fill in when the region which became our hometown, home village, was suffering war and famine, so the population dramatically just being wiped out. So they fill in population from other region. We called, I think, 川湘天山东 or something like that. So basically people from Sichuan province go to Shandong province to fill in the gap for population reduction. So I don't know when that happened. I think it happened in Qing Dynasty. So then even beyond, I think no, it's beyond. It's in the beginning Qing Dynasty, the end of Ming Dynasty. A lot of terrible things happened in the land. So carry on to our generation, we're already about 10 generation. I used to, when I was young, was learning calligraphy, which was a few boys able to master. And one of my job, when I'm good at it, my grandpa, which the one is holding the family tradition, if you will. My father was the oldest in the village. So few of us, he took them together to work on things. I was a young boy, but was able to write good. So I was given the task to write all the family tree lines, So they have this tree line, family tree line, and you have to hold it to celebrate. We don't necessarily worship our ancestor, but we treat it very honorably in a certain occasion. So I did that job, writing all the names. So I remember was pridefully the grandfather told me what those background is, so where our family came from, how many generations passed on. I think till my generation was over 20 generations. I heard some detail also. This is my father was the first son in his generation, and he's supposed to carry on a tradition which the name convention, now we Chinese names, at least in our village, is have this convention. You have a family last name as a family name as a last name. Then you have a generational character represent your generation which young. Now that was predetermined in our tradition about 10 generations ago. I mean, somebody evidently was eminent figure in our family. He wrote it out for the coming generation 100 years ago. So when time changed, come to my father, and he was the first the oldest in his generation, and he had a young boy, that is my big brother, and understandably, he should name the generation name according to the tradition. But he got into a good fight with my grandfather, which is the one I was, telling me the story, laughing over it, but it was still contentious. I think about this. My grandfather was not happy for the decision that my father made. What my father made was he had a dream when he named my big brother. And the dream, a voice told him not to name his name, which is the generation name, according to that tradition, assigned names. So the voice told him to name his name, called Bo Tao, okay? So Bo means wave, Tao means also a big wave, so two together basically big waves, so in the ocean like swell, so and so he heard that voice and he gave that name to my big brother. So that was very weird. We are superstitious, but not that kind of superstitious, so we don't use those things to break serious conventions. But it was very important to my father to a point that he had argued the case and did the unthinkable, because everyone after him, when they have the children, my uncle talking about, was made a big deal for them to follow the convention. So you can imagine in our generation, only our family with our siblings are named differently. That was always something, a strange phenomenon in our small village. So that also became a convention for my father to name other children. And interesting enough, I remember he told me the only person that that convention was not followed, which he did not wait on the voice tell him how to name the children, was my sister. And my sister always, we joke about it, my sister always brush her, say, I don't know, probably don't love me, so, we make a joke of it. And the father apologized, like he said, I'm sorry, I just didn't hear it. So was young in this dialogue. It was not common conversation. It was only on seldom occasions this was mentioned. So on this occasion, I asked my father, did you actually also name me based on some voice you heard? He said yes. And he heard a voice tell him how to name my name. So now that's maybe the pragmatic, because of personal dream, because of flood, because of everything else, I had to furnish these things. When I explain further, so when that happened, now your family name, so that's a family name. So when I was young, You have a called a nickname. Not nickname, but just loud name. Before you official named, like when you go to school. So when you were quite young, like very young, you don't have a name. This casually become a name. Now my name was Toto. Toto means wave after wave, which is interesting, and no other names, the nicknames in our family has to do with that. So, they all named differently. I don't quite remember their names, so, but mine was also waves, so when I go to school when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and the school is where Shanbi school. People, their teacher were lovely, and they knows everyone. So, my father got in trouble with them, or rather, they got in trouble with my father because they changed my name. One last name is so Sunbo Zhou. Zhou means continents. Okay, the second Bo means waves or flood or tiding. The last name means continents. And my father heard the name talking about Bo Ji Jiu Zhou. It's literally a given name. It's said the flood or the tiding going to reach 9 continents. 9 means a max number. In Chinese, it means everywhere, basically. So, and Jiuzhou is a convention in China talking about 7 islands or 9 continents, 9 islands, basically the whole world, So, and it implied we have also a meaning. 就是天下率土之滨 Murphy Wangtu means all those 9 continents is the land or the domain under the king. So that is the Chinese connotation at that time carried into my name. I never think it's a big deal until things begin to happen in my life or show up, make you just to think about those things, So like the Weijing Nicole had. So anyway, so the reason the argument happened between the teacher and my father was that they don't know Zhou what look like. In China, it have the same sound, it had different characters. So they said, oh, it's not this Zhou means continents, but rather it's a boat. It's the same pronunciation but different character and imply different meanings. So they changed my name. Basically, the other character, Zhou, means a boat on an ark on the ship. And my father was not happy in instructing to tell the teacher change it, and they continue not change it. Eventually become my official record. You have students, you have record, you have official record, become a citizen. That is reported to my official name due to the mistake of my teacher. And when my father found that out, he was very upset with the teachers. And the teacher was very apologetic. I remember myself standing there, seeing the argument going on. And I'm saying, what's the big deal? Everybody argued with my father. What's the big deal? It's just a name. We Chinese don't really pay a lot of attention to names. And but my father was contending he can't tell people, but he tell me, that name is not given by me. Something, he would consider as God told and named me like that. And the teachers literally stared at him as if he was crazy. And after that, he can't, I remember his face was red because he felt, well, what do you think your son is? What do you think he heard? So anyway, I don't quite understand those things in my young mind at all. And life carries on. Eventually, I had actually abandoned my given name before I came to America, stuff like that. And also, when I try to think about the names, God actually gave me the name. Since someone
to give me the name Immanuel. So all this being said, not to elevate myself, to provide a context, the flood, tidings, continents, ark, those things bear huge meanings now when I begin to know the Bible. God began to, teach me directly. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant. It's the truth. How do I encounter through the book Isaiah, especially Isaiah 42 to until 44, stuff like that. So anyway, so I never understand those things had to do with the gospel. Now, narrowed down to that context, the second one will be the third context. So recent, I have been drawn to pay attention to a jury trial case, which don't want to mention the particular case, only want to furnish something that a dialogue with Wes about a certain case. Now, a lot of context can be furnished there. I don't have the time really with it. Basically, the Lord told me ahead of time that there was something be released into this nation and going to cause a lot of disturbance, and eventually will bring devastation to the foundations of modern world. First, Papa, I said in this nation, we talk in America. So I don't want to use my own words here. I'm just going to read what I wrote to Wes as a context for this, for the understanding that I might be able to visit. Okay. I said this in this email. I can just read the whole thing in a sense. That I'm concerning the case, we are trying to evaluate the process, what's going on. And I said, I'm not sure I'm qualified to evaluate this stuff. But it's interesting witness that a technical lapse can cause such a controversy. I also seem to detect the prejudice that is awkwardly carried out by the prosecutor in this case. What I'm not sure is whether this is a norm for such cases or it is limited in scope, or even unique with these persecutors. Now, I don't quite understand American law practice, especially in terms, procedure law. We're talking about trial law, stuff like that. So anyway, let me read. You will know what I'm trying to get at. I'm not interested. I try to listen to certain cases, but never see a trial case in a sense. Let me see a certainty way, but for me it's all the drama, so let me read rather than deviate from the topic. Through a few notes here from a personal perspective. Now, this was written while I was just first heard Nicole's vision, and I did not have the time to really ponder on it because I was dialogue with Wes on these things. And then come back to me when I listened the second time, which propelled me to feel comment on it, then furnish the details. Then my point is that it seems God is interested to open channels to me, even in my personal sphere for understanding or information gathering, for me to consolidate something, to interpret Nicole's vision. I don't think that this vision is merely for my personal application, as clearly indicated by the detail of the vision, but it's a prophetic timing and have prophetic implication for God's people, for this world in general. In this slide, that's why I feel need to furnish with those details and to provide a credence, if you will, to the conclusions, the interpretation I will apply to Nicole's vision. Okay, let me read on them. Through a few notes here from a personal perspective. Not on the case itself, but more on the reason why I'm interested in this case. The reason of my interest. I'm not knowledgeable enough to make that discernment, but so far, the picture I get is not a promising one. And it greatly concerns me, as it's not in the notes itself, but as happened in a couple of years leading to now. In my review of history, the decline of any developed civilization or advanced civilization inevitably fell into the trap becoming legalistic rather than principled and spirit concerning its founding vision. The body of laws established often is usurped by skillful lawyers, using it as a tool for personal or group or class gain rather than for true welfare and justice of the people. I think American society is now in the stride of this development. It bothers me to witness that the slew of recent eminent or vocal leaders of this nation are from the background of legal education or professions for the development. Then I began to read some commentaries on the Constitution and the amendments. It was due to that reason I began to study American law a little bit. Not then spurred also because very early days I began to follow the Lord. I have some heavenly visitations in which the whole history of man was revealed to me. Rather, the history of creation was revealed to me, but man's history was presented as a timeline. And I remember I was sent almost like a shining light on a star into the timeline to mark two time phrases. Okay, in the timeline you have different phases, right? So 2 time phases. And the Lord speaking to me said He bring me from east to west to witness the decline of a certain culture, of a current day. And it was bad, so which is not the natural or the intent why I traveled or moved to different nations. And anyway, so then I was also see His new work into a new age, or if a new era, if you will, because in the timeline you can see different age, different eras. We call it epochs, whatever. And it's going to be the last one leading to the coming of the Lord. So I don't know what that means, I don't know the Bible, I don't know any spiritual context, but God called me in heaven and gave this vision. And pertaining to my life is a very strange feeling. And through the years, I never take that into serious discussion. In a sense, I shared, but never thinking about that as pertaining to I don't know. It's like there's a sense of inadequacy, sense of I hate people to be so vocal, whatever, with the revelation and the importance applied to themselves. I hope that not me, but when things happen this nature, what you do with it, it's become a personal application. If God called you and revealed those things to you, and it was a struggle, always a struggle. I think I often express to people I'm a lot more like a Jonah than really like I don't know, others. So the wholeheartedly excited welcome God's calling their life without any holding back. Especially the impression from charismatic circle. We want to be that. I don't know. There's a few occasions like that. I feel I want to really do that. But when the weedy things and the unthinkable things to me, a very uncomfortable thing to me happen like this, it's the first is who am I? So what qualify me to be even think like this? But reality is that those things are given to you. You just have to appropriate it. You like it or not, things begin to happen. Like this vision gave to me, this conversation to me. You narrow down, and to a place you have no retreat. You have to just okay, God, I understand you try to get me somewhere, and even use me for disclosure or interpretation of certain things. Maybe even assume responsibility. That's a big one, and I'm still struggling through it in a sense. Anyway, let me go back to this reading. So in further development, so I begin to read some commentary on the Constitution and amendments, especially the due process clause. One source has two sides arguing on the merits of the practice, and juries are not often used in today's judicial process, which is an obvious deviation from what is explicitly stated in the Constitution and amendments. I was startled to hear some of the rationales. From there, I began to have a general interest in the history of Magna Carta and the fact it is embodied principle played a big role in the American thoughts, especially those led to the revolution. Might not interest to others anyway. So a casual encounter here. A couple years back, we ran into a lawyer here preparing to become a county prosecutor, which required her to be some kind of a apprenticeship. I don't need to read that. Anyway, so the point is, such a curiosity led to my current interest in real jury trials. You can guess my amazement at this case and casually pick it up during my sick days. Just sometimes something to fuel my interest in things, so, and I pick it up, this case, try to see what the jury trial look like. And you can guess my amazement in this case. I casually pick it up for study for persecutory law practice. Persecution law practice is such a controversial one. Again, I still don't want to mention that name of the case. Point making is, West think this case is the floodgate, if you will, for certain evil development or unbecoming development in this nation, which I really see and concur with that. Now that being said, come back to Nicole's vision. I'm going to furnish from the vision some context there. I hope I can wrap it up before 5. In her vision, she talked about the certain details. Let's do the first thing, okay? The Chinese clock in the Chinese city, I believe it's Peking. Now in Peking city, Peking or Beijing is the capital city of China, especially from Ming to Qing dynasty. Now Ming dynasty was a dynasty that actually hired the Ming dynasty, Ming race in China, which I belong to, rise up, chased away a certain minority role and established for I don't know how long, for less than 4th century, I believe. But they established, stored a body for law, eventually become, and they established also the honor of the teaching, we call it Confucius teachings, all good teachings, and qualified it as a standard test for officials, for officials to be listed service by the government. This is have a huge impact in modern China, leading to modern day today China. So the second is they have a very strict law system with this place called the Da Ming Liu. Okay, so and it's begun to meticulously designed from the original intent to actually protect the weak and the poor in the nation, because the
founding figure of that dynasty was himself was a beggar, was actually become a monk, was literally a little bit uneducated, suffered a lot terrible times through hunger, famine, something like that, so anyway, that's part of the Chinese history. So when he came to power, he was very concerned the common man's interest. He wanted the officials to be absolutely limiting their abuse and their corruption and expense the common people. So now then he established a system to inaugurate Confucius teachings and to be a standard for training good officials. So it was a good heart, even his way was a little bit not necessarily like a tyrannic, so or dictator or whatever, old kingdoms to do that. But this body of law was put in place. Evidently was inherited from past dynasties, whatever, as well. And eventually, the emperors of this dynasty, one by one, become more corrupted, and the system become literally, parallel to team teaching. I don't have the time with it. On Tuesday morning, talking about the letter law versus the spirit or the heart of the law. That's exactly what happened in that season in China history as well. Just like in Jesus' time, evidenced by Matthew 16, they're doing lip service, but in the heart, they far away from honoring what God wants to honor, and right? The cultured embodiment of his way has a vision for his people. And this happened in China, the history on that one as well. So eventually, this body of law was usurped by a parasites class of lawyers that attach to the governmental system but use it to enrich themselves, to corrupt the whole system, now strangle the society to a point and become weak and underdeveloped. Those times, China become weakened and begin to lagging behind in terms benefiting general public, I guess. The Western begin to rise up, for example, especially with the Industrial Revolution, stuff like that begin to taking place, and China on the other side begin to decline. Now eventually, minority race rise up to the north, took over. That is the Qing dynasty. Now around this time, British Empire began to rise up and they send embassies to, before the Opera War, to try to do trading, open, try to communicate with China. Now the first interesting thing they bring is a clock, and with very good mechanic, exquisite design. And the emperor at the time called his grandfather, which is one of the founding of the Qing dynasty, was a very good man who actually educated by Jewish missionaries, very wise ruler. He actually wrote a poem praising our Lord Jesus Christ, and himself confessed he's a follower of Jesus Christ. So he actually is more serious believer than Immanuel, many Christians. And whether in the West or the East, you can apply that to some personal evaluation there, but it's an interesting figure, you can study it. So, so when that passed on to his grandson now, that's when this encounter happened. The Queen, I believe it was Elizabeth, from England sent emissaries to Peking to this Qianlong emperor, Qianlong, to try to pay tribute and bring this. It was considered by Qianlong at that time as they called it 奇迹淫巧, means strange designs, useless art, ready to corrupt basically the minds and the interests
people. Those people don't want good things because they think they can have concern for the poor, in a sense. Well, this is all some fluffy stuff, but evidently was not considered as a good omen. Eventually other things related to breaking down have been ending in that encounter. Now, leading ahead, however, this clockwork and was adopted by China and become one of the major things in the core life, in the upper class life. So, and move on, fast forward, and when Qing dynasty move on, was inherited the legal setup and culture setup from Ming dynasty. Even the minority role, they don't have that culture background to begin with, but they inherited anyway. So, and the same result happened, the same history repeated. That is, the lawyer class, like a parasites, eventually abuse the spirit of the law and usurped it for their own gain, strangled society, and abused the common interest of common people, and eventually caused the decline and the downfall of the society. So that's, leading to, we know, with the threat from the West, from then the rebellion within from other races, especially Han race. And we have the modern history that's leading to China Revolution, eventually leading to the new China under the rule of communists. So that is a recap a little bit. Now, in between, when Qing dynasty fell down, and China society morphed to the new society, there was a very interesting structure erected in the capital city, which is Beijing. We call the Zhongguo, which is a tower with a clock and bells. Okay, bell tower, you can call it bell tower. So it's square, is a public square, and many of the entertainment and tradings and gatherings, it's also a place for information, policy, publishing, whatever you have you. So it's basically a daily life and the center, a perfect embodiment of a certain culture of the day. So in Nicole's first vision, she saw the decline for that. I don't think it's merely a clockwork. And with that, we can move on to China. That's, I'm not sure, still existing now. However, I think, with whatever that instrument for speech or declaration, that is people doing protests or, in here doing preaching, that's a tool actually used in China most of the time for protesting, so for revolutionary causes and for protesting government most of the time. So I don't think that's had to do anything with me because I'm never involved political activities or have a affiliation, whatever. And but I do think I'm in that embodied messenger of the Lord declared the decline as the downfall of certain culture, which embodied in this structure, and the time has come for that. Now, quickly translate to New York. New York, the public square will look like. It literally called Times Square, right? So that's very interesting. And we know Times Square, what's embodied against public culture or the culture of the day. So move forward to London. London literally have called the bell tower, right? So I can furnish things a little bit now. Why Magna Carta, all the due process, those kind of requirements came to be, from Edward III, we call due process. Prior to that, don't quite remember the king's name, Richard. I don't quite remember. Anyway, but it started with this terrible transition that happened to King Henry VIII, where he, in order to marry another woman, so and he killed many of his wives. Was a terrible character in human history. But one of the person dismissed eventually put in prison in the tower. They literally call the tower. That is Thomas More. Was a fascinating figure and one of the person I have some study and hold a great admiration to. But with that transition, literally what have you, is the British become more and more powerful, but in many ways it had corrupted and set up, a skewed setup from the very beginning, because Henry is assumed to be the head of religion, right? Religious, the Anglican Church, and the whole setup was a abomination to a righteous way of a kingship, righteous way of doing worship God, obeying God. The whole thing is a lip service, and everybody know it, but nobody have till this day has a serious reckoning of those traditions and the origin of those practices. Now that's sad, so to witness. Now, is God going to be honored by these things or prosper by those things? Now, undoubtedly so, but God used those things to furnish his purpose anyway. So we till today, from American tradition, we talk about the British tradition, this common law tradition, and the struggle through it. But the holding together was this legal construct, if you will, on a societal construct that has been played the major undergirding how society should be organized, how the people should be governed, or how should a prosperous society should have relationship mapped up in a sense, so how that's being done, how welfare being shared, how to be a good ruler, how to be a good citizen, how to be a good neighbor to one another. Those are things implicitly mapped out through those legal or governmental constructs. Now, back to the last one. I don't know what the San Francisco stands for. I've been to Beijing, I've been to San Francisco, and I've been to New York or London. So I don't think in this case, my personal experience has anything to do with the understanding of this region. But I think, however, San Francisco has one interesting character that is a bit of cultural center of the West Coast. Also, it is a converging point of West to East in terms, especially in Chinese culture, in Chinese overseas culture. It's almost like it's a capital, so overseas Chinese always see San Francisco as the place where the East meets the West. We have great Chinese community there. Now, I might be speculating on that one because I don't know whether there is a Times Square, quote unquote, there or not. Enough to say all those constructs, but it's represented some culture mode, am I right? So, and all those being said, is this let me conclude by saying in Revelation 11, speaking about some changes going to happen to the world, and said Christ began to reign, and all the kingdom of the world going to be subdued or flow into the reign of his kingdom, which is, the period of time I see that ensued force when the light hitting the timeline, another era started. And I believe that is really the end time, am I? So preceding the coming of the Lord, for sure to be for millennium. So, so then God going to do something this time. But I don't think the time had to do with great revivals or great political movements, or he going to do some judgment in this nation, that nation, in terms of natural disaster, political conflicts, stuff like that. Those can be the vehicle. But as a fundamental judgment, God, through his remnant people, will be a challenge in terms of reevaluation. What kind of culture or societal construct we have been built our people into will literally the foundation of the temple, and the new challenges, new technology, new communications, consensus among the people will come to a new light to understand what the Lord is teaching through Scripture, especially the body law he gave to us, to mankind, in the Bible, whether the Old Testament or the New. We're going to read Moses' law differently. We're going to understand Jesus' teaching differently. We're not talking about merely building an organized church. We'll see a holy people in the God's vision, God's education, which is a culture, are going to be formed. And we're not going to construct societies, relationships, families, communities, one generation to another generation blessing with the old tricks, old light anymore. We're not going to use the Bible as a tool to verify our own vision and desires anymore. We're going to unlock the original intent and the original plan of God to find the willing people to practice those things. That basically what I think is what's going to tumble down. That's going to be a flood. The flood is not in disaster from the natural disaster or whatever. The flood will be, people will be enlightened to find the true heart, the true way is God for mankind from the very beginning. And that is a great renewal, so that you can find again in the latter part of Revelation 11, leading to, I would encourage you to also look at Revelation 12, talking the flood, also evil comes. So we're talking to flood here. One's a good flood, a flood enlightenment. Flood will bring up people to better understanding, endeavor in the blessed with the Lord. And the other flood is going to be deceived and challenged and by the evil that is spewed out by the devil, right? So that being said, almost 5 o'clock, good timing. I'm going to wrap it up here. And may you be blessed. May you don't see these things as a personal explanation or personal application. I think the vision itself speak loud and clear is something beyond the personal. But I do want to furnish the personal details and my everyday things, how God carried our converse together to furnish me to be able to understand the vision as I described. So may the Lord bless you. May the Lord continue to bring his wisdom and his heart to you. And may you find a good company to walk and live together and build together in his way, in his vision. Amen. God bless you.